Hey y'all, how's it going? This is Fathery of Tex-Trek here to do a little channel update and also talk about the recent Star Trek Discovery comic that just came out this week. I know it's been a while since we posted anything on YouTube, since Discovery has gone on hiatus after the fall finale. We will be picking up on our podcast discussions of each episode in January when the show returns. We're also still planning on doing the podcast episode on Star Trek Discovery Desperate Hours, the tie-in novel by David Mack. That is getting pushed back a little bit. I was hoping that we could do some Star Trek comic book talk with the recent TNG Mirror Universe miniseries, Star Trek The Next Generation Mirror Broken. But it looks like the next issue to that isn't coming out until a few months. So I wanted to talk about it, right before the trade is coming out, just to give people an idea of what's in it, how we feel about it, if it's worth your time and money to pick up the trade. So we'll be talking about that later. We have the Desperate Hours conversation coming up in roughly 2 weeks. I'm going to try to get that out around mid-December. And in January, I will be on the Star Trek cruise hosted by George Takei. A lot of actors are going to be on board, from Jonathan Frakes to Michael Dorn to Casey Biggs to Armin Shimmerman to John Delancey. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and I want to get some updates while I'm on board the cruise ship. I'm not sure what the Wi-Fi setup is going to be, if I'm going to be able to stream anything live, but we're trying to figure that out, because that's also where I'm going to be when Discovery drops with their January episode starting on, I believe, January 7th. So I'm going to try to figure out how me and Dave might be able to do like a live Google Hangout session or something like that. It's just going to depend on my internet connection. But we'll definitely be discussing that episode, as well as the rest of Star Trek Discovery Season 1. So, just some channel updates, want to get that out of the way. What I wanted to talk to y'all about now is this. Star Trek Discovery, the Light of Kahlesss. This just came out a couple days ago on Wednesday. Unless you're here in Austin, Texas, all of the comic book shops in town didn't get their comics until Thursday. Just weird shipping after the Thanksgiving holiday kept everything from arriving on time. But I did pick this up, I've read it, and wanted to share with you my thoughts. It is written by Mike Johnson. He's the guy who's been writing a lot of the Star Trek comics lately, everything that they've done in the Kelvin universe. To be honest, his work is hit and miss with me. I didn't really connect to it at first when he first started writing, like 5 or 6 years ago. Things got a little bit better after that. I think he kind of has some different interpretations of Star Trek than I do. When he did his Deep Space Nine crossover stuff, I was kind of like, that's not really how I think Benjamin Sisko would act, or that's not quite Quark. But yeah, we definitely have like some different opinions on Star Trek, which is not uncommon. Everyone kind of has their own definitive ideas of who these characters and what these concepts are. As far as this comic goes, it's co-written by Kristen Bear, who is like one of the staff writers on Discovery, and she's also in charge of all the tie-in material in comics or novels, making sure that all that is in line with the vision of the writers' staff on the show. So we're in kind of a weird situation these days, whereas always up until now, the comics and books, video games, whatever, any type of tie-in material that's not a TV show or movie has always been considered non-canon. And with the stuff they're doing now, the non-canon rule is still in place, but it's being made as if it was in canon. So the way I'm interpreting that is that we can think of these comics and tie-in novels with Discovery as essentially being canon until they're contradicted on the show. I think that's the main reason why they're not calling it canon now, is because they don't want to get tied up in something that David Mack did in this book. So now in season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, a couple years from now, we're limited now because we have to stay in line with this, things like that. But this is really cool, this comic. It is entirely Klingon-centric. So if you dislike the look of the Star Trek Discovery Klingons, you're gonna have to look at the ugly Klingons, as I like to call them. But no non-Klingon characters in this issue. I'm not gonna get into too many story details. I don't want to spoil anything. It's part 1 of a 4-part arc, and then I believe they're just going to call this the one mini-series, and they're going to go on and do something else with a different Star Trek Discovery comic. But the issue opens on board the sarcophagus ship during that 6-month gap between episodes 2 and 3, and it's really cool to see Vok and L'Rell and some other Klingons. They're viciously devouring a Starfleet officer, may or may not be Captain Georgiou, but these are the Klingons that they were low on supplies, they were low on rations. They're ripping apart a Starfleet uniform, mocking it, saying, "Oh, humans consider this armor." The guy goes as far as to say, "I'll wipe my ass with this." So that's kind of in line with what we know about these Klingons on the show, how they discussed what they were doing on the ship when we caught up with them in episode 4. And it quickly goes into a flashback of T'Kuvma's childhood. And the bulk of the issue is on Kronos. My fear going into this was that Mike Johnson would kind of take some of the more trite and cliche approaches to writing a sympathetic villain when they're young, vulnerable character, child who's been mistreated and kind of shunned as the outsider in society. And it's just a very commonly used way to make you sympathize with them. But I thought what they had going on in here was pretty interesting. You get a good look at kind of the Game of Thrones side of the Klingon society, things that were established in the older shows, where we know that certain Klingon families of certain levels of nobility would own great chunks of land, and kind of how medieval feudalism worked, or where you would have lords and then people loyal to that family. And it just kind of goes into the origins of the sarcophagus ship, stuff like that. It actually has a cool reference to a piece of Klingon lore we know about from The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. And I definitely want to pick up the remaining 3 issues and see what happens. With only 4 issues, I don't think there's going to be much of consequence revealed in this pretty short story. I don't think there's going to be anything in here that is super essential. Definitely nothing in this first issue, but it was interesting enough to me that I would recommend it if you want to delve a little deeper into T'Kuvma and see where he's coming from. The art is by, what was his name? Tony Chastain. I think he's done some work for DC Comics in the past, but if you're not familiar with them, I'm not terribly familiar with them, but I actually thought the panel layout was pretty cool. And if you have a local comic shop and you want to see more about the Star Trek Discovery Klingons, to learn a little bit more about T'Kuvma and potentially Vok and L'Rell, depending on where this is going in the next 3 issues, definitely stop by your local shop, or call them in advance, ask them if they can hold the issue for you. If you don't have a comic book store nearby, you can always get this on Comixology or on the IDW app, available on Apple or Android or Windows. You can definitely get access to this online, and I'm going to be talking about all the Star Trek Discovery comics coming out in the future, and Dave, being the comic book aficionado he is going to definitely have some opinions to throw out and weigh in on. Please give us some feedback and let us know if there's older Star Trek comics that you want to hear about, I really want to get into the Star Trek comics talk. Or if you're someone who's not really into comics, if you haven't read very many and you want to hear about the Star Trek Discovery comics that are coming out now, and hear about some of the past stuff that you might have missed out on but you're curious to find out about, let us know. Give us all the feedback. The people who give the most feedback are people who complain about either they don't like the music in my videos or they don't like the way I have things framed or set up. So I hope I'm well framed right now. I hope there's not too much negative space over here or what have you. I try to get everything focused and lit well, and if the framing's not good enough, I guess let me know and I'll try to do better. But some people are really picky about that type of stuff. I just want you to hear me. I just want to be heard. That's the whole point of this. But we have the Desperate Hours talk coming out in a couple of weeks, and then we'll have some updates from the cruise ship, hopefully, and some Star Trek Discovery episode discussions in January. So those additional podcast episodes are on the way. And that's all for now. I just wanted to touch base with everyone. As you can see, I have my holiday decorations up. I love this time of year, and I wish all of y'all happy holidays. Until next time, live long and prosper, y'all. Thank all of you so much for checking out this installment of Tex-Trek. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to like our YouTube videos and subscribe to our channel. Audio-only version of episodes are available at our website, www.tex-trek.com. Please check out our site, especially if you just want an audio-only podcast. We have that available for you. Y'all can also keep up with us online. You can follow us on Twitter at Tex-Trek, or you can check us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Tex-Trek. Please, by all means, let us know what you think by dropping a comment anywhere you see fit. We definitely want to hear your feedback. Let us know what you liked and what you would like to see more of, what you would like to see differently going forward. If you want to email me directly, go ahead. I can be reached at fatheryactual@tex-trek.com. Thank all y'all again. Take care.